What is up, internet? This is Derek Dustoff, and welcome to part 3 of my 7-part series where I rate and review every single Marvel project since Blade. And as a friendly reminder, I did it based on 5 criteria. That'll be the story, the characters, the pace, the spectacle, and of course, the overall entertainment. Got a lot of movies to go through, so let's get right into it. At number 50, we have the original X-Men with 75%. This was arguably the movie that kicked off 2 decades of Marvel movies. Sorry, Blade. And while it's not perfect, this movie has a decent balance of drama and campiness, which made it feel like a really true comic book movie. This movie was pretty solid overall, and I would definitely recommend watching it, but there are definitely better outings of X-Men movies. At number 49, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with 76%. This movie had problems. The biggest thing is the motivations. They seemed very forced, especially with Electro and Goblin. The thing that I really loved about this movie though was the cinematography and the sound design and score. I combined those because a lot of Electro stuff had like the dubstep element, and you can hear his inner thoughts through rapping during the Times Square scene when it focuses on Electro, which I thought was really cool. And the web swinging shots are obviously fantastic. And the movie was made with such care to detail. The story is just what held it back. I would have loved for Sony to finish the trilogy, but they did the usual leap to the Sinister Six with minimal effort. Sinister Six doesn't work as a build-up. It works when it's part of the story, like No Way Home or the Sony Spider-Man game. This movie could have been better, but at least it led to us getting the Spidey in the MCU. There's chatter of giving Tobey and Andrew their own movies, and I will definitely be there. Even if the reviews say it's garbage, Andrew was my generation Spider-Man. I feel whichever Spidey came out around the time you were in high school is your Spidey. This movie is still very beautiful, but the story just needed to work. Up next at 48 is the 2015 Fantastic Four movie with 77%.
What? What the fuck?
I'm putting an asterisk on this one because as a Fantastic Four movie, this completely failed. But as a film, it wasn't terrible. Because basically, if you told me the Fantastic Four characters went to the public domain and then an indie filmmaker took the reins and had like a decent budget, this is what I would expect. When I was trying to figure out the vibe, it was giving me like Chronicle, Project Almanac kind of vibes. And guess what? This director made Chronicle. So this movie has the asterisk because, like I said, if you score it as a movie, it's pretty decent, but as a Marvel film, as a Fantastic Four film, it just doesn't make the cut. Take out the comic book names and you have a knockoff, gritty Fantastic Four. Literally just change the titles, maybe the characters' names, tweak the powers a little bit, and you can have Chronicle 2. As a film, it's enjoyable enough. As a Marvel movie, they besmirched the name of the first family. At number 47, we have X-Men: The Last Stand at 78%. People should have a choice for a vaccine, but the government actually wants to force people to take it. Does that sound familiar? This movie essentially tries to have the vaccine argument and the gaze disease argument all in one go. It definitely tried to be a big final conclusion, and it played the cards decently well. While not perfect, I thought it was a solid enough entry into the initial trilogy. At number 46, we have New Mutants with 78%. This movie was essentially the movie It with a little bit of an X-Men mutant skin. I had to make an asterisk for this one because it's less a Marvel movie and just more of a horror movie. It's possible to hit a good balance for both, and this is a horror movie with superpowered people. I actually really like it as a whole though, and it doesn't overstay its welcome while clocking in an hour 27 minutes without credits. I love the actors as well. Macy as the Wolf Girl was a bit of a typecasting, but I'm fine with it. I definitely recommend giving it a stream for a horror night. Get the spooks. At number 45, we have Blade with 79%. This was actually the first time I watched any of the Blade movies. And I've seen some of the action sequences online, but this was the first time I actually watched the movie, and I was pleasantly surprised. The biggest scoring part for me was the stylish moves and the choreography. The stories felt pretty solid enough for this one, and I honestly think it was a pretty good story for a Blade movie. But Wesley Snipes' portrayal and all the fancy action sequences were definitely the big part of the movie for me. At number 44, we have Venom 2 with 79%. This movie really only did 2 things that I enjoyed: Venom and Eddie's relationship, and the Venom vs. Carnage showdown. These 2 things are the only thing holding this movie up. This whole movie was just one big Venom vs. Carnage setup to fill in an hour and 10 minutes of runtime. This is a prime example of Sony banking on character popularity versus a well thought out story. This movie hits the marks visually, especially with Carnage. Carnage's screams when I saw this in theaters made me genuinely terrified. Venom deserves much better though. The first movie wasn't perfect, but it had some semblance of character growth and a story. This was just a race to the end. It deserves better, and it wasted a badass villain by killing him. Do better, Sony, please. Your only successful projects are the ones that you're less involved with, i.e. Spider-Verse, which you gave the animators free reign to work on, and Tom Holland movies, which had MCU support. So Sony, look at what Marvel's doing. Look at what Into Spider-Verse is doing. Do that, please. At number 43, we have Doctor Strange with 80%. There are a handful of MCU movies that felt like an Iron Man 1 formula kind of movie, and this was one of the worst offenders. I will say visually this movie did a lot of cool things. This also marked the first explanation of magic in the MCU as well as multiverses. This movie sets up an interesting world, and Doctor Strange is up there with Tony in a lot of aspects and parallels. I like what they did, but story-wise I wasn't completely wowed, but visually it was stunning and was just an amazing movie to see. At number 42,
the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42.
We have Iron Man 3 with 80%. This movie got a lot of flack for the Mandarin twists. I never really hate it, but I do see where people would see it as an issue. But you have to admit, Trevor is a treasure. This movie was a solid blockbuster that had to follow up the Avengers, which is honestly hard in itself. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a solid Iron Man outing. Plenty of room for improvement, but it was fun and entertaining to watch. At number 41, we have X-Men First Class with 81%. This was a much more story-driven X-Men movie, and it was a solid movie. It managed to avoid the prequel trap of false stakes and just focus on the characters and their relationships. This also shows the divide between mutants and their views of the humans that hate and fear them. It's a great story, it just felt a little slow due to minimal action and a lot of story and character development. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and it did help the movie in a lot of ways.